Derek called me a dead man walking before I'd even left the oncologist's office. I was still processing the words stage T1C prostate cancer when my 29-year-old son leaned back in the passenger seat of my Toyota Camry and said, "Well, Dad, at least now we know the timeline." Timeline. Like I was a project with a deadline. I kept my hands steady on the steering wheel, took a breath, and smiled. Not the kind of smile you give when someone tells a joke. The kind you give when you finally understand exactly what you're dealing with. What timeline is that, Derek? You know, estate planning, getting things sorted before. He gestured vaguely toward the medical building behind us. That's when I knew exactly what I was dealing with. The campaign started immediately. 3 days after the appointment, Derek showed up at my house with a folder thick with papers. Legal stuff, he called it. Power of attorney documents, healthcare directives, financial management agreements. "Dad, I've been researching your condition online," he said, spreading the papers across my kitchen table like he was closing a business deal. "Stage T1C can be aggressive. The stress of managing finances could accelerate the progression." I watched him arrange the documents in neat rows. Derek had always been organized, methodical. It's what made him successful in marketing. It's also what made him dangerous. "I appreciate the concern," I said, "but Dr. Davis gave me some very encouraging numbers yesterday." Derek's jaw tightened. "Dad, doctors sugarcoat things. They don't want to scare patients. But I've done the research." He pulled out his phone, scrolled through screenshots. 5-year survival rates for men your age with prostate cancer are concerning. I knew the real numbers. Gleason score 6, confined to the prostate, 94% 10-year survival rate. Dr. Davis had been very clear. But Derek wasn't interested in real numbers. Over the next 2 weeks, the behavior escalated. Derek started showing up to my medical appointments uninvited. He'd sit next to me in the waiting room, then follow me into the examination room like I was a child who couldn't be trusted alone. "I'm here to make sure Dad understands everything," he'd tell the nurses. "The diagnosis has been hard on his cognitive function." The first time he said it, I laughed. The second time, I noticed the nurse taking notes. At restaurants, Derek would order for me. "He's been having trouble making decisions since the cancer diagnosis," he'd explain to servers who looked confused when he cut me off mid-sentence. At the bank, when I went to review my investment portfolio, Derek appeared at my shoulder. "Dad called me because he's been having trouble with numbers lately," he announced to my financial advisor. "I think it's time I took a more active role in managing his accounts." I hadn't called Derek. He'd been monitoring my calendar app. The public humiliation was systematic, calculated. Derek was building a narrative, and every interaction was evidence for his case. James Wilson, cancer patient, declining mental capacity, needs responsible son to step in and manage affairs. But Derek made one crucial mistake that Tuesday morning. He underestimated how much his dead man walking actually understood about being alive. I'd spent 37 years building a medical device company from nothing. 15 patents, $8 million in licensing deals, relationships with hospitals across 3 states. You don't accumulate that kind of success by being stupid about people, and I definitely don't get there by being careless about documentation. Every conversation Derek had in my presence, I recorded. Every medical appointment where he spoke for me, I followed up with private calls to clarify my actual condition. Every restaurant interaction where he infantilized me, I returned later to apologize to the staff and leave business cards. The security system I installed in my house 3 days after the cancer diagnosis wasn't for burglars. It was for family, because when someone starts treating you like you're mentally incompetent, you better make sure you can prove otherwise. And when someone starts talking about timelines and estate planning while you're still digesting a cancer diagnosis, you better start documenting everything. Derek thought he was managing a dying man's transition into helplessness. What he was actually doing was creating evidence for his own prosecution. The call came on November 2nd at 2:47 p.m. I was in my home office reviewing patent renewal paperwork when my phone rang. Derek's name on the caller ID. I almost declined it. We'd had 3 conversations that week already, all involving his increasingly aggressive suggestions about simplifying my financial situation. But something made me answer. "Hi, Derek." "Hey, Dad. Listen, I'm with a mortgage broker right now, and we're discussing some options for estate planning. Can you stay on the line? I want to make sure we're all on the same page." "Estate planning? Through a mortgage broker?" I put the call on speaker and opened my voice recorder app. "Mr. Wilson?" A woman's voice. Professional, friendly.
This is Sarah Chen from Desert Mountain Lending. Your son Derek has been explaining your family's situation, and I want to express my condolences for your diagnosis. Condolences. For a cancer with a 94% survival rate. Thank you, I said carefully. Derek has explained that you're terminal, possibly 6 months, and that the family needs to move quickly on asset protection strategies, Sarah continued. The property we're discussing would be an excellent investment for the estate transition. Terminal. 6 months. I looked at my medical files on the desk.
T1C prostate cancer, Gleason score 6, excellent prognosis with treatment. I'd started radiation therapy the previous week. Dr. Davis had scheduled golf for next spring, joking about my handicap improving once treatment was finished. I think there might be some confusion about my prognosis, I said. Derek's voice cut in quickly. Dad, remember what we discussed about staying positive? The stress isn't good for your condition. Derek, Sarah said, why don't you give me the specifics again so your father understands the timeline we're working with? Right. So, Dad was diagnosed with stage T1C prostate cancer 3 weeks ago. The oncologist was honest about the prognosis. Advanced age, aggressive progression, maybe 6 to 12 months. Dad's been in denial about it, which is normal, but we need to be realistic about financial planning. 6 to 12 months, advanced age, aggressive progression. Every word was a lie. The property we're looking at is $1,247,000, Derek continued. But with Dad's declining health, traditional financing isn't really an option. That's where the estate planning component comes in. I see, Sarah said. And you have power of attorney. Working on it. Dad's been resistant, but his judgment has been compromised since the diagnosis. Memory issues, confusion about financial matters. It's been hard to watch. Memory issues. Confusion. I was sitting in an office surrounded by active business contracts, patent documents, and investment portfolios I managed personally. The previous week, I'd closed a licensing deal worth $200,000. That morning, I'd reviewed quarterly reports for 3 different investment accounts. What kind of estate planning are we discussing? I asked. Derek's tone shifted, became patient, condescending. The voice you use with confused elderly relatives. Dad, remember? We talked about this. The house would be an investment property, something to secure value before the medical bills start accumulating. I'd handle all the management, payments, maintenance. You wouldn't need to worry about any of it. Who would be on the mortgage application? Well, that's the strategic part. Your credit score is excellent, and you have the income history to qualify, but given your condition, I'd be listed as the primary contact for all communications. It just makes sense. It made sense if you were planning to forge someone's signature. Sarah, I said, what documentation would be required from me personally? Standard mortgage application, she replied. Income verification, asset statements, medical clearance for the loan amount, and signature on the primary documents. Medical clearance. Just a physician's statement confirming mental competency for major financial decisions, Sarah explained. Routine for applicants over 60 with recent health diagnoses. Derek jumped in. I can handle coordinating with Dad's medical team. They know the situation. They knew the situation. My oncologist, who'd given me an excellent prognosis. My internist, who'd cleared me for normal activities. My business attorney, who'd helped me renew 3 patents that month. I think I should speak with my medical team directly, I said. Dad, you're getting confused again. Let me handle the coordination. You just focus on your health. The call ended 5 minutes later with Sarah promising to send preliminary paperwork to Derek's email address. Derek would review everything with Dad and handle the application process. After I hung up, I sat in my office staring at the voice recorder app. 47 minutes of recorded conversation. Derek describing me as terminal, confused, mentally compromised, and unable to handle financial decisions. Derek planning to forge my signature on a $1.2 million mortgage application using falsified medical documentation. Derek positioning himself as my caregiver while planning to commit federal fraud. I called Dr. Davis. Michael, it's James. I need to ask you about something unusual. Has anyone from my family contacted your office requesting medical documentation? Actually, yes. Your son Derek called yesterday asking for a statement about your mental competency for financial planning. I told him I'd need to speak with you directly before releasing any medical information. What exactly did he tell you about my condition? He said you were terminal, possibly 6 months, and that the family needed documentation for estate planning. I was confused because that's not remotely consistent with your actual prognosis. Terminal, 6 months. Michael,
I need to ask you for a favor, and it might sound strange. What kind of favor? I think someone is planning to commit fraud using falsified medical records, and I need your help documenting exactly what's happening.
The mortgage approval came faster than Derek expected. Dr. Michael Davis has been my oncologist for 3 weeks and my golf partner for 12 years. He's also the smartest man I know when it comes to reading people. "James," he said, looking up from his computer screen, "I've been thinking about our conversation yesterday, about your son's behavior." We were in his office for my weekly radiation planning session, standard appointment, routine discussion about treatment progress, except nothing about my family situation was routine anymore. "I've seen this before," Michael continued. "Adult children who hear cancer and immediately start planning inheritances. Usually it's subtle. Background questions about prognosis, casual discussions about estate planning. But your son's approach is different. Different how? He's lying. Systematically and deliberately. Yesterday's call wasn't about getting medical information. It was about getting me to provide false medical information. I'd played the recorded mortgage broker conversation for Michael that morning. 47 minutes of Derek describing me as terminal, mentally compromised, and incompetent to handle financial decisions. "He told Sarah Chen I have 6 to 12 months, I said. "Advanced age, aggressive progression, complete fiction. Stage T1C prostate cancer with your Gleason score has a 94% 10-year survival rate," Michael replied. "You're not terminal. You're not even close to terminal. With radiation therapy, your prognosis is excellent." "So why is Derek telling people I'm dying?" Michael leaned back in his chair. "Because dead men don't question financial decisions, and confused elderly patients don't notice missing assets." The room went quiet. Outside, I could hear the normal sounds of a medical office. Phones ringing, nurses talking, patients in the waiting room. Normal sounds for normal problems. This wasn't normal. "Michael, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest." "Of course. Is Derek planning what I think he's planning?" "Based on what you've told me, yes. He's building a legal framework to justify taking control of your finances while you're still alive. The false medical narrative, the power of attorney pressure, the public demonstrations of your supposed mental decline. It's textbook elder financial abuse." Elder financial abuse. The phrase hit like a cold slap. I'm 64 years old. I'm not elderly. To someone planning fraud, you're elderly enough, especially with a cancer diagnosis to use as cover. I thought about the mortgage conversation. Derek positioning himself as my caregiver while planning to forge my signature. Sarah Chen asking about medical clearance for financial competency. Derek volunteering to coordinate with my medical team. "What would you do?" I asked. Michael was quiet for a long moment. "As your doctor, I'd tell you to focus on your health and let the legal system handle family problems. As your friend, I'd tell you to document everything and prepare for war." "War?" "James, your son is planning to steal over $1 million from you while telling the world you're too sick and confused to stop him. That's not a family dispute. That's a federal crime." I looked at my hands. Steady, strong, capable of holding a golf club or signing contracts or writing checks. In 3 weeks, Derek had convinced a mortgage broker, restaurant servers, bank employees, and medical staff that these hands belonged to a confused, dying man. "I need your help with something," I said. "What kind of help?" "I need you to document Derek's behavior. Officially, as part of your medical practice." "What do you mean?" "You told me you've seen this before. Adult children exploiting cancer diagnoses for financial gain. Is that something you study? Research?" Michael's expression shifted. "Actually, yes. I'm collaborating on a research paper about financial predation targeting cancer patients. We're documenting behavioral patterns, family dynamics, exploitation methods. Would Derek's behavior qualify for your research?" "Absolutely. What he's doing is a textbook case of cancer-related financial abuse. Then document it, all of it. The false medical claims, the lies about my prognosis, the systematic campaign to portray me as mentally incompetent. Make it part of your official research." "James, that would mean—" "It would mean Derek's behavior becomes part of the medical record. Official documentation of attempted elder financial abuse, witnessed and recorded by a Harvard Medical School-trained oncologist." Michael smiled for the first time that day. "It would also mean I'd be professionally obligated to report suspected criminal activity to the appropriate authorities." "How long would that take?" "How long until Derek submits his fraudulent mortgage application?" I checked my phone. November 8th. The mortgage broker had said preliminary approval would take 7 to 10 business days. Derek had rushed the application process, probably hoping to close before I had time to review the documents. Maybe a week. Then we have a week to build a case that will destroy him in court. I looked at Michael, my oncologist, my golf partner, my new co-conspirator in what was about to become the most satisfying investigation of my life. Let's do it. But Derek had one advantage I didn't know about yet, and in 3 days he'd use it to try to humiliate me in public. The security system installation took 6 hours and cost $2,400, but watching Derek's face when he noticed the cameras was priceless. Dad, what's all this? He'd let himself into my house using the spare key I'd given him years ago, back when I trusted him. Home security, I said, not looking up from my laptop. Insurance company recommended it after the cancer diagnosis. Apparently, medical patients are considered high risk for break-ins. Derek walked through my living room, counting cameras. 4 in main areas, 2 covering entry points, 1 in my home office, all connected to cloud storage with automatic backup. This seems excessive. Excessive would be letting someone steal from me while I'm focused on cancer treatment. He stopped walking. Dad, who would steal from you? I don't know yet, but if someone tries, I'll have evidence. The cameras weren't just for Derek. They were for everyone. Insurance adjusters, medical equipment delivery, home healthcare workers, family members. Anyone who entered my house while I was dealing with cancer would be documented. But Derek didn't know the real reason for the security system. He thought it was about external threats. The real threat was already inside. 3 days after installation, Derek triggered the first recording. I was at radiation therapy when my phone buzzed with a security alert. Motion detected in home office, 2:47 p.m. I opened the live feed. Derek was in my office, sitting at my desk, going through my filing cabinet. He had a stack of papers next to my computer. Bank statements, investment portfolios, insurance documents. My personal financial information. He was photographing everything with his phone. I watched him work for 23 minutes. Methodical, organized, thorough. He photographed account numbers, balances, asset statements, contact information for my financial advisors. Everything someone would need to forge a mortgage application. When Derek left, I drove home and reviewed the security footage. Crystal clear video of my son conducting reconnaissance for fraud. But the cameras were just the beginning. The next morning, I called my bank. This is James Wilson. I need to set up fraud alerts on all my accounts. What kind of fraud alerts, Mr. Wilson? I want to be notified immediately of any credit inquiries, loan applications, or attempts to access my accounts without my direct, in-person authorization. Is there a specific concern we should know about? Yes, I have reason to believe someone may attempt to use my personal information for unauthorized financial activities. Do you know who might attempt this? I looked at the security footage of Derek photographing my bank statements. I have suspicions, but I need documentation before I make accusations. The fraud alerts went active immediately. Any credit check, loan inquiry, or financial application using my social security number would trigger automatic notifications to my phone and email. Then I called my attorney. Jim, it's James Wilson. I need to discuss something unusual. Someone in my family may be planning financial fraud, and I need advice about evidence gathering. What kind of fraud? Mortgage fraud. Using my personal information and falsified medical records to obtain a loan without my knowledge or consent. That's a federal crime, James. Have you contacted the police? Not yet. I want to document everything first. Build an ironclad case. Smart approach. What kind of evidence do you have? I described the security footage, the recorded phone conversations, Derek's lies about my medical condition, his attempts to obtain power of attorney. James, this isn't just fraud. This is elder financial abuse with intent to commit identity theft. If someone files fraudulent loan documents using your information, you could be looking at federal charges for conspiracy. Even though I'm the victim? Even though you're the victim? The mortgage company won't know you didn't authorize the application. Your signature will be on the documents, your financial information will be accurate, and your son will present medical documentation claiming you're mentally incompetent to understand the transaction. The mortgage company would think I approved the loan. Derek would have forged signatures, falsified medical records, and presented everything through official channels. By the time anyone discovered the fraud, Derek would own a $1.2 million house in my name. What should I do? Document everything, and I mean everything. Every conversation, every attempt to access your information, every lie about your medical condition. Build a timeline that proves premeditation. How long do I have? How long until he submits the mortgage application? I checked the calendar. November 8th. Sarah Chen had said 7 to 10 business days for preliminary approval. Maybe 5 days. Then you have 5 days to build a federal case. I spent the next week documenting Derek's behavior like a forensic accountant. Every phone call recorded, every conversation transcribed, every security camera incident logged with timestamps. The credit monitoring alerts started on November 12th. First alert, 9:23 a.m. Credit inquiry from Desert Mountain Lending. Second alert, 9:41 a.m. Employment verification request to my business accountant. Third alert, 10:15 a.m. Asset verification request to my investment firm. Derek was submitting the mortgage application, using my personal information, my financial history, my credit score, all without my knowledge or consent. I called Dr. Davis. Michael, Derek is moving forward with the mortgage fraud. I need that medical documentation we discussed. Already prepared. I've documented every conversation Derek has had with my office, every false claim about your medical condition, every attempt to obtain fraudulent medical records. It's all part of my research file on cancer-related financial abuse. What does the documentation show? That Derek Wilson systematically lied about his father's medical condition to facilitate financial fraud. That he attempted to obtain false medical documentation to support fraudulent loan applications, and that his behavior represents textbook elder financial abuse. Is that enough for prosecution? James, what Derek is doing isn't just enough for prosecution, it's enough for federal charges. The mortgage approval came faster than Derek expected. 12 days later, Derek called with exciting news about his investment property purchase. He'd found a beautiful house in North Scottsdale. 4,200 square feet, granite countertops, pool, 3-car garage. I'm having a housewarming party next Saturday, he said. You should come. That sounds nice. What's the address? Derek gave me the address of a $1. $2 million house purchased with my forged signature and falsified medical records. I'll be there, I said. I didn't mention that I'd be bringing guests. Derek cornered me at the grocery store on November 18th. I was comparing prices on coffee when he appeared at the end of the aisle like he'd been waiting. Dad, we need to talk. About what? About your behavior lately. The paranoia, the security cameras, the constant questions about financial planning. It's concerning. Paranoia. I looked at my son, who'd spent 3 weeks lying about my medical condition to facilitate mortgage fraud, and he was calling me paranoid. What's concerning about home security? It's not just the security system. It's everything. The suspicious phone calls to the bank, the weird conversations with Dr. Davis, the way you've been acting secretive about routine medical appointments. Derek stepped closer, lowering his voice like he was sharing confidential information. Dad, I think the cancer diagnosis affected you more than you're admitting. The stress, the medication, the fear, it's normal for patients to develop paranoid thinking patterns. Paranoid thinking patterns. Derek was building his narrative in real time. I don't think I'm being paranoid, I said. That's what paranoid people always say. Derek's tone was patient, understanding, the voice you use with confused elderly relatives. Look, I've been researching your condition, talking to other families who've dealt with similar situations. Cognitive changes are common with prostate cancer patients, especially men your age. 2 shoppers were listening now, a middle-aged woman comparing pasta prices, an elderly man selecting produce. Derek had chosen his location carefully. Public space, witnesses, perfect opportunity to demonstrate my supposed mental decline. What kind of cognitive changes? Confusion about financial matters, difficulty making decisions, suspicion of family members trying to help. It's textbook cancer-related anxiety disorder. Cancer-related anxiety disorder. Derek had done his homework. Maybe you're right, I said. Derek's expression shifted. Relief, maybe, like he'd been expecting more resistance. I'm glad you're being open about this, Dad. It shows good insight into your condition. What do you think I should do? Well, first, I think you should talk to Dr. Davis about medication for the anxiety. Second, maybe we should revisit those financial planning documents, just to take some of the decision-making pressure off you while you focus on treatment. Financial planning documents, power of attorney forms, legal authority to manage my accounts while I was confused and paranoid. That makes sense, I said. But I have one question. What's that? If I'm suffering from paranoid thinking patterns and cognitive decline, How did I manage to close a $200,000 licensing deal last week? Derek went very still. How did I renew 3 medical device patents this month? How did I coordinate with 4 different hospitals on equipment specifications? How did I review and approve quarterly investment reports for 8 different accounts? The woman comparing pasta had stopped pretending to shop. She was listening now. Dad, you're getting agitated. This is exactly what I'm talking about. I'm getting factual. On November 12th, someone used my personal information to apply for a $1,247,000 mortgage, someone who told the lender I was terminal, mentally incompetent, and unable to manage financial decisions. Derek's face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. November 15th, someone received preliminary mortgage approval using my credit score, my income history, and my asset verification. Someone who forged my signature on the application documents. Dad, you're having paranoid delusions. November 17th, someone closed on a house in North Scottsdale using fraudulent medical documentation claiming I was dying and confused. Derek looked around the grocery store. The pasta woman was staring. The elderly man had moved closer. 2 employees had stopped stocking shelves. You're embarrassing yourself, Derek whispered. No, I said. I'm embarrassing you. Derek grabbed my arm. We're leaving. You need medical attention. I didn't move. Derek, I have one more question. What? How exactly did you think this was going to end? Derek's grip tightened on my arm. Dad, you're scaring me. You're not making sense. I'm making perfect sense. You've been planning to steal over $1 million from me while telling everyone I'm too sick and confused to stop you. The only question is whether you actually thought you'd get away with it. Derek let go of my arm and stepped back. You're having a breakdown. I'm having a revelation. 3 days later, Derek posted his first social media update about managing his father's declining mental health. But Derek didn't know I'd been documenting everything, including that conversation. Derek's social media offensive began on November 21st with a Facebook post that made my blood pressure spike. It's been a difficult month for our family. Dad's cancer diagnosis has been harder than expected, not just physically, but mentally. We're learning that cognitive changes are common with older cancer patients, especially paranoid thinking and confusion about financial matters. Please keep us in your thoughts as we navigate this challenging time. #cancer support #
family caregiving # prayers needed. Cognitive changes, paranoid thinking, confusion about financial matters. 53 likes. 27 comments expressing sympathy for Derek's difficult situation, managing his declining father. The next day, update on Dad's situation. His oncologist confirmed that anxiety and paranoid delusions are normal side effects of his cancer treatment. We're exploring medication options and considering additional support for his daily activities. It's hard to watch someone you love struggle with these changes, but we're committed to keeping him safe and comfortable. #cancer care # mental health # family strength. Paranoid delusions, additional support, keeping him safe. Derek was building a public narrative that positioned him as the responsible caregiver managing his confused, paranoid father's decline. The comments were worse than the posts. Derek, you're such a good son for taking care of your father.
My grandmother went through something similar with her cancer. The confusion and anger are so hard on families. Have you considered a care facility? Sometimes professional help is better for everyone. A care facility. Derek's followers were suggesting he put me in assisted living for my paranoid delusions about financial fraud. The Instagram posts were more visual. Photos of Derek looking exhausted and worried, captions about the hidden challenges of cancer caregiving, pictures of medical pamphlets about cognitive changes in cancer patients, screenshots of articles about managing elderly paranoia, but Derek's biggest mistake was LinkedIn. I wanted to share something personal that many professionals may face. My father's recent cancer diagnosis has brought unexpected challenges beyond the medical treatment. As his primary caregiver, I'm learning about the cognitive and psychological effects of cancer on older patients. His oncologist has explained that paranoid thinking, financial confusion, and resistance to family help are common symptoms. For other professionals dealing with similar family situations, please know you're not alone. There are resources available for managing these difficult changes while maintaining dignity and safety for our loved ones. #cancer caregiving, #family support, #professional life, mental health awareness. Primary caregiver, financial confusion, maintaining dignity and safety. Derek had tagged 8 colleagues, 4 clients, and 12 business connections. His professional network now believed he was managing his mentally declining father's finances out of necessity. The LinkedIn post was also evidence of premeditation. Derek was creating a public record that established his authority to manage my financial affairs. When the mortgage documents surfaced, his social media history would show months of documenting my cognitive decline and his responsibility as my caregiver. Except Derek made one crucial error in his social media strategy. He forgot that dead men don't have active business accounts. On November 23rd, while Derek was posting about his father's declining mental state, James Wilson was signing a $300,000 medical device contract with Phoenix Children's Hospital. On November 24th, while Derek described his father's financial confusion, James Wilson was presenting quarterly reports to 6 different investment clients. On November 25th, while Derek shared articles about elderly paranoia, James Wilson was approving patent renewal applications worth $2 million in licensing potential. I documented everything. Screenshots of Derek's posts, timestamps of my business activities, evidence that his confused, paranoid father was conducting complex financial transactions while Derek claimed I was mentally incompetent. But the social media campaign wasn't just about establishing Derek's caregiver narrative. It was about destroying my credibility before I could expose his fraud. If I accused Derek of mortgage fraud, who would believe the paranoid, confused cancer patient over the responsible son documenting his father's decline? If I presented evidence of forged signatures and falsified medical records, Derek's followers would see it as more paranoid delusions from a man whose cognitive changes were already documented on social media. Derek had weaponized social media to preemptively discredit any accusations I might make. But Derek didn't know about Dr. Davis's research documentation. He didn't know about the security camera footage. He didn't know about the recorded phone conversations. And he definitely didn't know about the federal investigators who'd been reviewing his social media posts as evidence of premeditation in an elder financial abuse case. On November 26th, Derek called with exciting news about his housewarming party. "Dad, I really hope you'll come Saturday. I know things have been tense between us lately, but this is important to me. It's a fresh start for our family." "I'll be there," I said. "Great. And Dad, maybe don't mention the paranoid stuff to my friends. I'd rather keep family medical issues private." "Of course," I said. "I wouldn't want to embarrass you." Derek's biggest mistake was putting it all online. Because every post, every comment, every photo became evidence that he'd planned this fraud for weeks while publicly documenting his supposed justification. Federal prosecutors love defendants who document their own crimes. Dr. Davis's office became our war room. "James, what we've compiled here isn't just evidence of fraud," Michael said, spreading documents across his desk. "It's evidence of a systematic campaign to commit elder financial abuse using cancer diagnosis as cover." The evidence table was impressive. 3 weeks of documentation organized into categories: medical fraud, financial fraud, social media manipulation, and witness testimony. "Let's review what we have," I said. Michael opened the first folder. Medical fraud. Derek has made false claims about your diagnosis to a mortgage broker, claiming you're terminal with 6 to 12 months survival when your actual prognosis is excellent. He's attempted to obtain falsified medical documentation claiming mental incompetency. He's publicly stated on social media that your oncologist confirmed paranoid delusions, which is completely false. What's the documentation? Recorded phone conversation with the mortgage broker, 47 minutes of Derek lying about your medical condition. Written record of his attempts to obtain false medical documentation from my office. Screenshots of social media posts claiming medical information I never provided. Folder 2, Financial Fraud. Derek has submitted a mortgage application using your personal information without authorization. Forged signature analysis shows the documents were signed by someone other than you. He's conducted unauthorized access to your financial accounts and photographed confidential banking information. Evidence. Credit monitoring alerts showing unauthorized loan application. Security camera footage of Derek accessing your home office and photographing financial documents. Handwriting analysis confirming signature forgery. Folder 3, Social Media Manipulation. Derek has created a public narrative positioning himself as your caregiver while you suffer cognitive decline. This narrative directly contradicts your actual business activities and mental competency. The timeline shows premeditation. He began building this false narrative before submitting fraudulent mortgage documents. Evidence? Complete social media archive showing systematic campaign to portray you as mentally incompetent, Business records showing your continued professional activities during the same period. Derek claims you were confused and paranoid. Folder 4, witness testimony. Multiple healthcare providers, business associates, and service providers can testify to your actual mental competency. Your business attorney, financial advisors, and medical team can confirm you've been functioning normally throughout the period Derek claims you were declining. Michael closed the folders. James, this isn't just enough for prosecution. This is enough for federal charges with enhanced penalties for elder abuse. What kind of penalties? Mortgage fraud alone carries up to 30 years federal prison time. Add elder financial abuse, identity theft, and conspiracy charges. Derek is looking at potential life imprisonment. Life imprisonment for stealing from his cancer patient father. What about restitution? Full financial recovery plus damages plus legal fees. Derek would lose the fraudulent house, face civil penalties, and potentially owe punitive damages. I looked at the evidence folders. 3 weeks of my son's systematic betrayal, documented with scientific precision. Michael, I need to ask you something personal. What? Do you think I'm doing the right thing? Michael was quiet for a moment. James, what Derek did to you is one of the most calculating betrayals I've seen in 30 years of medical practice. He used your cancer diagnosis, a vulnerable moment when you needed family support, to launch a premeditated campaign of financial fraud. But he's still my son. He stopped being your son the moment he decided your cancer made you easy money. The phone rang. Michael checked the caller ID. It's Detective Morrison from Scottsdale PD Economic Crimes Unit, he said. They've been reviewing the evidence package we submitted. Michael put the call on speaker. Dr. Davis, I've finished reviewing the Wilson case documentation. This is one of the most thoroughly documented elder financial abuse cases we've seen. The defendant created a complete paper trail of premeditation. What's your recommendation, Detective? We're prepared to proceed with arrest warrants for mortgage fraud, identity theft, elder financial abuse, and conspiracy charges. When do you want to execute? I looked at Michael. 3 weeks ago, I'd been a cancer patient processing a medical diagnosis. Now I was the primary witness in a federal fraud case against my own son. Detective Morrison, I said, Derek is having a housewarming party this Saturday for the house he bought with fraudulent mortgage documents. Interesting timing. He's invited me. Specifically asked me to come celebrate his investment property purchase. Mr. Wilson, are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting? I'm suggesting that someone who commits fraud by claiming his father is too confused to understand financial transactions might benefit from a public demonstration of exactly how well his father understands legal consequences. Detective Morrison was quiet for a moment. Mr. Wilson, would you be willing to participate in a controlled operation to execute arrest warrants at the defendant's housewarming party? I looked at the evidence folders. 47 minutes of recorded lies. 3 weeks of systematic betrayal. Derek's social media campaign calling me paranoid and confused. Detective, I'd be honored to participate. Then we'll see you Saturday. But Derek didn't know about any of this. As far as he knew, his paranoid, confused father was simply coming to celebrate his successful house purchase. Derek was about to learn exactly how much his dead man walking understood about being alive. Saturday, December 15th, 4:17 p.m. Derek's housewarming party was already in full swing when I pulled into the driveway of his $1.2 million fraudulent house. 24 cars lined the street. Derek's coworkers, college friends, his girlfriend Madison, neighbors from his old apartment complex. Everyone who'd seen his social media posts about caring for his declining father was here to celebrate his new success. I sat in my Toyota Camry for a moment, watching through the front windows. Derek was holding court in his granite countertop kitchen, gesturing broadly while telling stories. Probably about his investment strategy, his real estate savvy, his bright financial future. My phone buzzed. Text from Detective Morrison. Units in position. Dr. Davis arrived 5 minutes ago. Proceed when ready. I walked to the front door and rang the doorbell. Derek answered, wearing a new button-down shirt and an expression of genuine happiness. For just a second, looking at his smile, I remembered the son who used to help me in the garage, who brought me coffee on Sunday mornings, who called me his hero. Then I remembered the mortgage documents with my forged signature. Dad, you made it! Derek pulled me into a hug. Come in, come in. I want to show you everything. The house was beautiful. Open floor plan, vaulted ceilings, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the desert. Exactly the kind of place a successful marketing consultant might buy if he'd actually earned the money to afford it. Derek, this is incredible, I said. How did you manage something like this? Smart financial planning, Derek replied, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. I've been working with Dad on some investment strategies, and everything fell into place. Working with Dad. Investment strategies. Madison appeared with 2 glasses of wine. Mr. Wilson, Derek has told us so much about your partnership on this purchase. It's wonderful that you two could work together despite your health challenges. Partnership. Despite my health challenges. What kind of partnership? I asked. Derek's jaw tightened slightly. Dad, remember we discussed keeping family financial details private? I just want to understand how this partnership worked. Madison looked confused. Derek, didn't you say your father was the primary investor? That you coordinated everything because of his medical situation? Primary investor. Medical situation. Derek's college roommate joined the conversation. Dude, your dad looks great for someone dealing with terminal cancer. The way you described it on Facebook, I expected him to be way worse. Terminal cancer. The room went quiet. 8 people in the immediate area stopped talking and looked at me, then at Derek, then back at me. Terminal cancer? I said. Derek's face went red. Dad, you're misunderstanding. Kyle, I never said terminal. I said the diagnosis has been challenging. Bro, you literally posted about 6-month survival rates, Kyle replied. You said your dad's oncologist confirmed cognitive decline and paranoid delusions. I looked around the room. 12 people now listening to Kyle describe Derek's social media posts about my supposed mental deterioration. Derek, I said, can we talk privately? Actually, said a voice from the front door, I think this conversation should be public. Dr. Michael Davis stepped into the living room, carrying a briefcase and wearing his most professional demeanor. Dr. Davis, Derek said, I didn't know you were coming. I wasn't invited, Michael replied. I'm here in my capacity as treating physician for Mr. James Wilson and as a witness in a federal fraud investigation. The room went completely silent. Michael opened his briefcase and removed a thick folder. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for interrupting your party, but I need to address some serious misinformation that's been circulating about my patient. What misinformation? Madison asked. Derek Wilson has been telling people that his father is terminally ill, mentally incompetent, and suffering from paranoid delusions. None of that is true. Michael opened the folder and began reading from official medical documents. James Wilson was diagnosed with stage T1C prostate cancer, Gleason score 6, on October 15, 2024. This diagnosis carries a 94% 10-year survival rate. Mr. Wilson is not terminal, not mentally compromised, and has an excellent prognosis with treatment. Kyle looked at Derek. Dude, what the hell? Furthermore, Michael continued, Derek Wilson contacted my office multiple times requesting false medical documentation, claiming his father was mentally incompetent. When I refused, he proceeded to tell a mortgage broker that I had confirmed his father's cognitive decline and terminal prognosis. This is medical fraud. The front door opened again. Detective Morrison entered, followed by 2 uniformed officers and a woman carrying legal documents. Derek Wilson? Detective Morrison said. Yes. You're under arrest for mortgage fraud, identity theft, elder financial abuse, and conspiracy to commit federal fraud. Derek went white. There's been a mistake. No mistake, the woman with documents said. I'm Bailiff Susan Rodriguez, Maricopa County Sheriff's Office. Mr. Wilson, this house was purchased using fraudulent mortgage documents with a forged signature. This property is being seized as evidence in a federal fraud case. Derek looked around the room. His friends, his coworkers, his girlfriend, all staring at him as federal agents explained his charges. Dad, Derek said, tell them this is a misunderstanding. I looked at my son. 3 weeks ago, he'd called me a dead man walking. He'd told a mortgage broker I was terminal and confused. He'd posted on social media about my paranoid delusions. He'd forged my signature on a $1.2 million loan application. Derek, I said, the only misunderstanding is yours. Detective Morrison began reading Miranda rights while Bailiff Rodriguez began photographing the house for asset seizure. Derek's guest stood frozen, phones out, recording everything. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Dad, please, Derek said. I was trying to help. The house was an investment for the family. You forged my signature, I said. You have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be provided for you. I was protecting our assets before the medical bills started. Derek continued. You told people I was dying, I said. Do you understand the rights I have just read to you? Derek looked at me with tears in his eyes. I'm your son. You stopped being my son the moment you decided my cancer diagnosis made me easy money. Detective Morrison cuffed Derek's hands behind his back. Bailiff Rodriguez handed me official documents transferring ownership of the fraudulent house back to the state for processing. Madison was crying. Kyle was filming with his phone. Derek's co-workers were backing toward the door. Mr. Wilson, Detective Morrison said, we'll need you to come to the station for formal witness statements. Of course, I said. As they led Derek toward the door, he looked back at me one more time. Dad, I never meant for it to go this far. Derek, I said, you planned this for 3 weeks. You documented it on social media? You forged legal documents? Exactly how far did you think it was going to go? Derek didn't answer. The house emptied quickly after the arrests. Derek's friends fled like roaches when lights come on. Madison left without a word. The granite countertops and vaulted ceilings suddenly felt cold and hollow. Dr. Davis and I stood in the empty living room, surrounded by half-eaten appetizers and abandoned wine glasses. How do you feel? Michael asked. I looked around the beautiful house my son had bought with forged signatures and falsified medical records, the house where he'd planned to celebrate stealing from his cancer patient father. I feel like I'm very much alive, I said. What happens now? Now Derek learns about consequences, and I go home to plan my next 30 years. But Derek's legal troubles were just beginning, and my cancer treatment was just ending. 6 months later, Derek pleaded guilty to 4 federal charges: mortgage fraud, identity theft, elder financial abuse, and conspiracy. The plea deal included 5 years federal prison, full restitution of $1,247,000, forfeiture of all assets, and permanent restriction from accessing my financial accounts. The house sold for $1.1 million at federal auction. After legal fees and processing costs, I recovered $987,000. Derek's BMW was repossessed. His marketing consulting business collapsed when clients learned about the fraud charges. Madison broke up with him 2 days after the arrest. Kyle posted the arrest video on TikTok, where it received 2.3 million views and 847,000 likes. My cancer treatment concluded in March 2025. Clean scans, excellent prognosis, full recovery. Dr. Davis cleared me for normal activities, including golf. My handicap improved dramatically. The medical device patents I renewed during Derek's fraud campaign are now worth $12.4 million in licensing deals. 3 new contracts, 5 hospital partnerships, 2 international distributors. Turns out, cancer treatment actually sharpened my business focus. Derek wrote me letters from federal prison. Apologies, explanations, requests for forgiveness, and financial support. I read each letter carefully, then filed them in a folder labeled Evidence of Continued Manipulation. I didn't respond. On my 65th birthday, I updated my estate planning. New will, new beneficiaries, new trustees. Derek's name appears exactly once, in a section titled Explicit Exclusions. The document states clearly that Derek Wilson receives nothing from my estate due to criminal fraud committed against the testator during a vulnerable medical period. My attorney assured me the exclusion is legally bulletproof. Last month, Derek was released on supervised parole. He moved back to Phoenix, found work at a call center, lives in a studio apartment near the airport. His parole officer requires monthly financial reporting and prohibits unsupervised contact with elderly relatives. Derek called 3 times asking to meet for dinner. I declined politely. Some people believe family forgiveness is automatic, that blood relationships trump behavior, that cancer survivors should embrace second chances in healing reconciliation. Those people have never had their son call them a dead man walking before stealing $1.2 million using forged signatures and falsified medical records. I'm not dead. I'm not walking toward anything except 30 more years of excellent health and financial security. And Derek is no longer my son. He's a federal felon who taught me that trust, once broken by calculated betrayal, doesn't repair itself through apology letters and supervised parole. Some boundaries, once crossed, become permanent. But I kept the security cameras.